camera topic, for example. And when an advertiser is trying to target a specific audience on a platform like Twitch or YouTube, they can target specific videos that will have the intended audience. The difference with a platform like Twitter is the ads aren't being served directly on your profile or on your tweets. They're being served throughout the Twitter experience. So instead of getting a percentage of the ads served on your piece of content, you're getting a percentage of the amount of money your audience made the platform. So if a given Twitter user, through their experience on Twitter, scrolling through ads and whatnot, theoretically made Twitter $5 in a month, and 25% of the tweets they saw were your tweets, you should get 25% of whatever their determined revenue split is. So let's say they go 50-50. So it's $2.50 would go to creators, then your 25% of that would be what goes to you. But it's all based on the amount of money that people who see your tweets made Twitter, divided by whatever their split is, divided by what percentage of their impressions and experience on Twitter is your content.
Yeah, I was just going to add. So I think there's so many variables at play here. So one of them is based on obviously the number of impressions of ads that show to other users who are blue check marks, right? So when somebody clicks your tweet or clicks your profile and they see an ad and they're a blue check mark, then revenue is going to go to that user. It's going to be shared. But one thing that with the discrepancies. And yeah, there's a lot of people like arguing, okay, this person's making more than this person's conservative, this person's liberal. That's not what matters, I don't think. I think what matters, and I'm sure there's going to be people that argue with this, is that Twitter has recently partnered with a company called Integral Ad Sciences. And what they're doing with this company is giving settings to advertisers, sensitivity settings, which enables advertisers to basically choose how suitable they want the ads to be. So right now they can choose between moderate or conservative, but there's also another one, a very relaxed setting coming. Now, what they're basing this off of is actually machine learning. And this is all actually in a X Business blog post that was made about, I guess, 2 weeks ago. And they're using machine learning to determine if a post is in any of these three sensitivity settings. So relaxed, standard, conservative. Now, what they're basing this off of is actually something called GARM, GARM Safety and Suitability Framework. And that stands for the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. It's an organization. And if you go to the GARM website, they actually list, I think it's 15 different categories, content categories. There's adult content, there's arms and ammunition, crime and hate and harmful acts, death, injury, military conflict, online piracy, hate speech, obscenity and profanity, illegal drugs, spam, terrorism, and finally, and this is an important one, debatable, sensitive social issues. So they list those 15 categories, but then they rank, they describe what high risk, medium risk, and low risk are. And advertisers are basically allowed to choose what they want their content against, whether it's high risk, medium risk, or low risk. And that will correspond, I'm guessing, to conservative, moderate, and relaxed. And it just lists it all. So like, for example, the low risk for debatable, sensible social issues, which might be something like LGBTQ issues.
So Brian,
yeah,
what are the debatable social issues? Because that's where the kind of disagreement is probably going to be, isn't it?
Yeah, so I didn't dive deep enough to see what's defined as a debatable, sensible social issue. I assume it's just social issues, right? So I'm guessing trans issues, whether it's positive or negative against them, right? But if the content is educational or informational and scientific based, then that is considered low risk. But if, on the other hand, it's dramatic depiction of debatable social issues presented in the context of entertainment, it's medium, and high would be depiction or discussion of debated social issues and related acts in negative or partisan context. So
Brian, can I ask you a question? So like, for me, okay, I get that. So let's say that was the mechanism to decide it, like all good, all cool. As long as there was transparency, as long as we knew what the situation was, all good. I do think there needs to be transparency. The issue is the second aspect of it, which is consistency. So there are people who are part of like Elon's crew, who basically Elon engages with, who do basically write posts that cause significant racial division in the United States. To talk about black people and how they're criminals and how they're this and how they're that. They write posts against the LGBTQ community, and so on and so forth. So, which again, some of us agree with, but again, it might be something that's debatable. So, how are those people, for example, getting big numbers? So, and then the question becomes, when they are, which is fine, like people can, but when they are, then how does this? What are these debatable issues? Is there issues that basically, if you agree with Elon's ideology, then you get paid, and those are the debatable issues, or is it? Well, what is it? What are these debatable issues?
Well, since they're going through integral ad sciences, I mean, I would assume that it's not based on Elon, based on what Elon's picking and choosing. I can't prove that, like is it possible that there's other things going on here? Yeah, I'm sure it is. And there are other variables like just a person's reach. Like if you're shadow banned or if you're being deboosted, that's obviously going to cut down on your ad shows, ad displays. But yeah, I mean, it's fair to ask like what some of these issues are. I think we will probably get more transparency. I think that they rolled this whole ad thing out like prematurely, just because obviously they were looking to kind of take the attention away from Threads. But I'm assuming that probably over the course of the next couple of months, there will be more clarity. At least I hope there is.
Suleiman, Suleiman, I just want to say something. Like what you're bringing up is the issue of these sort of third-party rating systems and how transparent and how credible they are. And this is a constant theme. Like when we had the economic meltdown in 2008, 2009, what we found out is these rating systems for like Wall Street securities were just garbage. And so I think that what you're bringing up is the fact is we need to take a look at these rating systems. And they need to be transparent. It's not necessarily about Twitter. This is about these third-party rating systems that they're using to rate things, and like no one knows like who they are, who's funding them, who's behind them. That's what you're bringing up.
100%. So, like who is like? I think Paul, you hit the nail on the head, and that's my concern. It's not about the money, right? It's like who's deciding this kind of like social credit system. What are the values of this company? Who's funding this company? And then what happens then is whatever their ideology is, that's going to be the ideology of X, because let's be clear, a lot of people will then start basically conforming to get paid. And so you then X will become an ideological machine for a specific ideological perspective. That's where my concern is in the long run. I know we're all excited at the moment and we want to and for some people it's maybe they want to defend Elon or whatever it is, but that's my concern. But Brian, I'll let you jump in and I'll go to Alpha.
Yeah. So I mean, so GARM is basically a creation of the World Federation of Advertisers. So who's running it? It's the World Federation of Advertisers. So it's a group of advertisers, whoever these companies are that actually make it up. I haven't delved into like exactly who makes it up, but they are basically making these guidelines. But what you have to understand is they are the ones spending money and buying ads. So I don't know. I mean, I get that people are upset. Oh, maybe these guidelines are blocking certain people when they shouldn't be. But I feel that as advertisers, they should have the right to choose who they want to advertise against.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And specifically which audiences they want to advertise to. And I feel like this is the part.
1 second, Theo. So, and I just want to be clear, like when we're saying these concerns, like even then, I want to preface this that like we all, or I do anyway, I still appreciate X compared to any other social media platform. I just don't like this kind of like kissing ass, like just because it's Elon, we've got to suck up and he's my boy, so I've got to lick. I'm not about that. Like where I think he does brilliant, I'm gonna point it out, which there is a lot of things. And then similarly, where he does terrible, I'm gonna point it out where it isn't. Remember, this is a new platform, so it can improve a lot. But Alpha, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Go ahead, bro.
Hey, Brian, do you have a list of information that like a post or something that has that info in it? As far as categories?
Let me actually. Yeah. So it's at so if you go to the website, it's just wfanet.org. That's where you can read about GARM, and if you click through it, you can basically, if you go to that site and scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the guidelines. I think it's on the third page. Oh. So just go to that website and then.
All right, thanks. What I was gonna say is that I don't know if this is already discussed, but I heard that essentially Twitter X is aware of the issue as far as account-wide ad deboosting. Because I did something a few days ago. I don't know what it was, and now I don't have any ads. Okay. So apparently,
your mic, but Alpha, your mic is. I'm not sure if you could fix it. It's just really hard to hear you. So maybe while you're fixing it, yeah, I'll give you about 30 seconds. Because now, Richard, you were trying to add something to what Brian is saying. So I'll let you add what you're saying, Richard, before we get Alpha to continue, and he's fixing his mic. No, not Richard. Sorry, Tio, you were adding something.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm really fond of capitalism, and I think that advertisers should have the right to choose which audiences they're trying to target. The advertising market is a very competitive one, and X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, is in like it's a lower tier advertiser still compared to Facebook's ad network as well as Google's. Both of those have such absurdly deep and thorough levels of targeting that advertisers have grown to expect that, like, in order for X to be a service that doesn't die because it loses too much money, they have to do whatever they have to do in order to get advertisers on the platform and get those advertisers to see returns and see value in the money that they're spending. And the reality is there are audiences on Twitter that are more valuable than other audiences. An audience that's on here to learn about technologies they might purchase at the workplace is going to be fundamentally different than an audience that's just here to talk about politics or social issues. There might be people within that audience that are more valuable to other demographic like distinctions about them. But in the end, your value isn't determined based on your profile, based on your number of impressions, or based on who you are. It's based on how valuable the people who see your tweets are in terms of what the advertisers are willing to spend. And I agree with pretty much everything Brian has said so far.
And that's very sense. Like,
it's all about the advertiser money spending.
Let me add one thing, and I'll just gotta jump into a call and come back. But let me add one thing, and we'll go to Alpha. Is that we've purchased a lot of accounts on in general and on various social media platforms, and we've worked with various accounts. If you want to go and pay a meme, a cat meme account on Twitter or YouTube, etc., they'll charge pennies. If you want to go and pay an AI account that has an AI audience or a finance audience, they could have 10% of the audience and still charge significantly more. So yeah, the quality of the audience is extremely important. I just want to highlight that point that Tio said. So if you're sitting there tweeting hateful shit or tweeting rubbish, you're not going to probably get the same monetization as someone who's tweeting content for an AI audience or finance audience.
Mario, the flaw with that argument is, I get that, like, everyone's got niches, but like there's examples of people who Elon does engage with who do have, like, what you just called shit, which is causing racial division in the United States of America, which is attacking certain communities on a regular basis, and they're getting huge bag. So it's not the simple.
I'm gonna half agree with you on
that. Can I weigh in?
Yeah, can I go up to Brian too?
Yeah, like I said, like I feel like there's several variables here. One variable could, in fact, be like the circles of people you interact with. So if Elon's interacting with you, maybe the system believes that you're safer or more suitable than, say, somebody that he doesn't. So I mean, I can't rule that out. I'm not saying that's the case, but that's definitely a possibility, I think.
I've had the opposite effect from Elon interacting with me, I'll be honest. Like, there are times he's engaged with a tweet of mine, or I'm sorry, post now, but in the past, and immediately after my account was like flatlined. I don't know if, because it was so much of a heavy like amount of traffic or something, but it was like an insane drop off, like my account went off a cliff immediately after. So I don't know. I think that it could be like a double-edged sword as far as Elon engagement. Like, it's not always, it might look really shiny and awesome, and I love Elon and all he's trying to do, but it's also sometimes a kiss of death on your account, and it takes a while to recover.
Let me go to Dustin. So Dustin, what Theo is saying is like a fair point. He's saying, look, at the end of the day, advertisers are king. They're going to decide the content that they want to monetize. And if you basically produce that content, then you're going to get paid. If you don't,
the same misconception keeps coming. Let me know when I can clear it up.
Yeah, you jumped in quite a bit, so we will come back to you, Theo. But Justin, what I was saying was, so he's saying, like, so in the end, advertisers are king, so they're going to decide. And as long as you're making content that's basically, provides for advertisers and depends on your audience and so on and so forth, that'll be fine. But then the other side of that is, Dustin, why were people crying about YouTube? Why were people crying about Instagram? Why were people crying about Facebook and all these other social media platforms? Because they were doing the same thing. Advertiser was king, capitalism. We live in a liberal leftist society. And so therefore, deal with it. X is going to become like it. What's your thoughts on that, Dustin?
Well, and that's the danger. So, like, a term I think we need to interject is, right, we've all heard of audience capture, but advertiser capture, which is what we're really talking about here is behavioral modification as far as what we're going to post and how we're going to post it. And so the question becomes, when you start dealing with these NGO type organizations like GARM and the World Federation of Advertisers, is that their bias is going to be reflected back on what behavior people are being modified into, which is, I don't want to see Twitter or X become Facebook. Don't Facebook my Twitter, right? At the end of the day, we're starting to already see like kind of devolving into this was the platform where we could have deeper discussions. It was more intellectual, right? I don't mind to say it wasn't dumbed down the way the rest of the social media platforms were. And that's what I appreciate about it. This was the place I could come. I could follow reporters. I could interact with heads of companies, founders of projects, right? That was the advantage. That's why I preferred this platform over the others. And by the advertisers becoming the central figure as far as driving content, the danger becomes that this just becomes a dumbed down, watered down version like Facebook or like Instagram or like any of these other social media platforms. And that really bugs me, because we need a place where these discussions could happen. And I thought Twitter was heading in the right direction under Elon. Spaces had broadly raised the level of dialogue, which is I felt like the dialogue was getting deeper and more refined as a result of people having to like stand up and face people in an audio sense. That was really helpful. I think this is a turn in the wrong direction. Listen, I don't want to be out here
that's already happening.
My hairy titties.
Justin, can I ask you another question as well?
I want to carry on. To post, my tits in order to get likes and trying to get skimpy and like thirst trapping everybody. But listen, I'll do it if I have to.
Bro, please keep to what you're good at. Do not go down that road. But Dustin, a question for you. One of the common concerns people have had on Twitter, which I have observed,
not wanting to follow that.
but one of the concerns people have had, on Twitter, Laura Loomer is a prime example of this, and she's been tweeting about this as well. She feels like this is a targeted attack against certain ideological positions. So basically, Trump supporters are being demonetized significantly. You also have sorry, Justin dropped there. But basically, let me go to Brandon then, because I think you are a Trump supporter as well, Brandon. So basically, you've got a scenario where Trump supporters are basically being demonetized. They're not getting the revenue. DeSantis supporters are getting significant revenue. Liberals are getting significant revenue. And so there's a huge concern about this. Or someone like Laura Loomer, who gets significant engagement. I think she's like 400 million. Like, she's on par with like Brian and the big guns. So what's your thoughts about that one?
I don't know if there's evidence to say that Trump supporters are more inhibited in any way than anybody else. I have no idea. I can't speak to whether or not that's true. I don't feel like I personally have evidence that that's true. But there's two things that I would like to contribute to the conversation that I consider to be major concerns. One is exactly what Dustin just said, and I would actually take it a step further, because I think that that's already started to happen. I'm seeing so many people who are already so concerned about making money and beating the algorithm and getting it to be a part that I think it's going to be very, very, it's not going to be long before people are not here at all to tell the truth or to express their honest opinion, but to try to figure out exactly the words that they need to say to make money. And I think that those words are oftentimes going to be completely vapid or milquetoast or not in any way reflective of how they actually feel about anything. And look, I'll be honest with you. I've been getting so frustrated about this over the last week. It has nothing to do with my payout. Let me first of all, like, set the table by saying, I don't think that I'm ever going to make amazing money on X. And I'm totally fine with that. There's other things that I do. It's not my life. I don't tweet that much. I don't spend that much time on here. I'm never going to be a huge income earner on Twitter. And I'm totally fine with that. But I actually considered going and shutting off my monetization the other day because I already find myself starting to think those thoughts, like, should I not use this word? Or, I really wanted to put the F word in this tweet. Maybe I shouldn't put the F word in this tweet. And I'm like, I stop. I hate this. Like, I don't want advertisers getting in my head like that and driving my thoughts and how I'm going to engage with people on this platform. I came here and I do everything I do because I want to tell the truth about how I see the world, what I think is going on in the world. And I don't want that to be determined by making money. And I already see that starting to happen to other people. And go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Well, yeah, I have another point, but go ahead.
No. I've got a question for you, and then please continue on. What about the concern that some people have, and it's that obviously you've got some people who've made good payouts, right? And remember, we never used to have payouts before, so that is the other side. Like, I just want to be clear. This is not hating. This is just looking at it from a very balanced perspective and looking at all sides. So, what about this concern? So, I'll give my own example. I would always tweet because Twitter is a good medium to get out your ideas and thoughts. But whereas before I was thinking, I'm going to start doing video content a lot more. I'm going to put it all out on Twitter. Now I'm thinking, is it worth it? Why don't I put that video account out on Rumble? Because Chris Pavlovsky is going to be completely supportive. Why don't I put it on YouTube? Because YouTube and Twitter seem to be similar. And I can make money that way anyway. And I'll be able to engage with another audience. So do you think some people may think they need to diversify, or do you think it's not? People are thinking, you know what, it's no big deal.
Well, I think that could happen depending on. So now I'm going to kind of go back on what I just said a tiny little bit. I'm somebody who loves to make videos. That's the way I love to express myself. I would rather share my opinions through little hot takes and videos and stuff. And if it gets to the point where the algorithm decides that it hates that, and every video I make is not possibly going to get seen by more than maybe a couple hundred people or get a few dozen retweets. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm going to reconsider. Do I feel like putting all the time and effort it takes into making a video, editing it, putting it together, and putting it out, if I know for a fact that the algorithm's never going to allow people to see it? That's definitely a consideration. I don't know if that exactly addresses what you're saying, but it does kind of. Can I make my next point? Because it does kind of lead.
For sure, yeah. Go ahead, Brandon.
Down that road a little bit. I think a big point of frustration and anger for a lot of people on this platform is that we were promised back in January that we were going to find out that we were going to have tools to find out if our accounts were shadow banned, if we had some sort of negative score or some sort of toxicity on our account, and be given some method to appeal or address it. If so, I did see a few tweets the other day that kind of addressed that, which I was happy to see, let me say. But for the most part, it seemed like that kind of went quiet. We didn't get a lot of transparency or explanation about that. Sorry, I just got a call. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And then the next thing that happened was a lot of people, and I don't want to trigger Theo because I think he got upset with me yesterday, but I do look, there are a handful of people that are very boosted by Elon Musk. And it seemed like the majority of those people were like, getting these enormous paychecks, and then suddenly they became like the authority of how to do well on Twitter, while never acknowledging that their relationship with Elon Musk was any part of that. But that aside, a lot of people are still experiencing legacy shadow bans, tags on their accounts, a lot of negative things that have never been addressed. And then it's like that's kind of just being rolled over. And now it's like, well, if you want to make money on X, this is how you do it. And it's like, well, no. I mean, what if all of the people who are killing it right now are saying that they're just killing it because they're so good at using X? Well, let's hit the reset button. Like, let's give everybody the same, let's lift the restrictions from people's accounts. Let's lift the shadow bans, and then let's see what happens.
And so Brandon, what you're saying is important. And let me go to Maze. Is because there are people, even I was shadow banned for a period of time. I think Alpha's been shadow banned. Khaleesi was shadow banned for a significant period of time. And so the concern is this, like, if you go all in on Twitter, right? So you're like, I'm going to do all my content on Twitter, but then you could be shadow banned one day. You don't know you've been shadow banned unless you go to an external website. You don't know how to get it lifted. You don't know what's happening. Even YouTube, who basically, have this mad system, they will ban someone or demonetize someone, but they'll send them an email, although they don't tell them the reasons as well. So I guess they're similar. But Miz, how would people deal with that issue that basically, and I just to preface that, Musk did say that he's going to sort it out, and we are hoping that gets sorted out. We just saw recently that was it like some kind of system where a social credit system, like if you were engaging with toxic accounts, you would degrade. You were basically, your account was degraded and your engagement was degraded. So he is making certain moves to improve the place, but then at the same time, shadow bans is a huge thing. Like that is very, very big. Like, what does he do about that? Go ahead.
So I would say the first thing that comes to mind are clear parameters around what would limit reach. Because I think, he made it clear that there will be free speech, however, not freedom of reach. And, that's still very ambiguous because a lot of people are not really aware what it was. Many of the people that I talked to that had their accounts shadow banned weren't sure. Well, they weren't sure what it was, which tweet or which post it was that got them shadow banned. And that kind of brings up, I think, the legacy system that Brandon was talking about. Elon just posted something the other day, or was it yesterday, where he talked about this social credit of sorts that, that will be deleted. So meaning it's still at play. And he did acknowledge that there was a time where it was very politically driven. There were a lot of, I would say on the left, those were amplified and things, and folks that were on the right were kind of deboosted. And I know that he's working to get all of that out. However, whatever is in the system now, and I guess maybe Theo would probably be able to answer that, because when we're talking about advertising, it's like if you're not even in the basket of people for them to choose from because you're not making the impressions, then it doesn't even really matter about what they're, I understand that aspect of it, them kind of facilitating or dictating what people are tweeting about. But at the same time, some people will never even make it in the basket because they don't know exactly what it is that has them deboosted. And so I don't know if that's a legacy thing or not, but I was curious to get Theo's thoughts on I think it's called Tweep Cred or something like that. Did you want to? Can we pivot to him?
Yeah, I read through the code for the
algo. Theo, go ahead, because that's what I was actually referring to. I just couldn't remember the name. Is it? It's whatever May said. But go ahead, Theo. If you can explain that to us and explain, like, by removing it, what kind of benefit that has. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Tweep Cred system, from what I understood reading the code, is primarily as like a spam bot prevention method. I'm sure we've all noticed that on a lot of our tweets, we have the little see more button at the bottom now. I think that's one of the best additions to Twitter in recent times. And usually what Tweep Cred is referring to is the system in which an account is determined to be more or less likely to be bringing value, and therefore which accounts are more or less likely to show up under replies without being put under that fold. There's a bunch of things that are put into it, like what percentage of your tweets have links in them, how new is your account, how many people are you following, how recently did you follow them, how many people follow you back, how many followers do you have, and what's the ratio there. Like, it's a combination of like bot/spam prevention and like a general mop.
Theo, quick question. Didn't Elon say he was going to remove it? So what's his thought process behind that? Because I thought that was a good thing that he wanted to remove it to, like, so I can basically engage with controversial people and it's not going to impact me. So it becomes.
He already confirmed that it doesn't really do that. It's more so used as a system for like small following accounts to determine whether or not their replies are bringing value or not. From the source code that I read.
That's not true at all, because I use a secondary account to watch what happens on my own account. And when I retweet someone who doesn't have ads or is potentially shadow banned, all ads are removed from my own account. So it 100% affects you if you're engaging with accounts that are on some sort of blacklist or seen as awful, like the CEO said. it 100% affects you and your ads, especially the retweet feature. That's what seems to really trigger it to affect your account directly. So if someone, a good way of determining whether or not someone is affected
if you can
by
DM
this
me one of
is,
these accounts, I would love to try it. But like, this isn't tweet cred.
yeah,
That's
sure.
like
But a good way of testing
advertising.
it yourself, a good way of testing it yourself is to go find a tweet that has more than 3 comments and doesn't have any ads, retweet it yourself, and then use a secondary account or someone else on Twitter to check your tweet that had ads prior to see if it still has ads, because 100% of my ads were removed from my entire account. I mean, tweets that were like a month old, I watched in real time as they were dropped from my account.
Which is a problem, isn't it, Brian? Because if that is happening, what that means is the small accounts don't get opportunities. It means the big accounts don't engage with smaller accounts because you basically don't want to get deboosted. And Brian, just one more question on that, if that's okay, because I know you want to jump in anyway. So, just one more question on that. I know my tweet where I criticized the ad revenue did not get, and I pinned it on the top. I think, yeah, my tweet where I criticize the ad revenue did not get sponsors. So is it, if you criticize Elon as well, you don't get sponsors? But anyway, Brian,
I just really quickly want to say it's safe to test this, because as soon as I undid the retweet, the ads were immediately back. And I'm talking like it's immediate. Within seconds, the ads were back on all of my old tweets and
if you
my
can give
page.
me an example of one of these tweets, I'm more than happy to test it. But like, I read the source code. That's not how this works. And
I watched it real time and multiple times.
Brian, go ahead. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So I think first of all, yeah, it's tweet cred is obviously not something that I think should be in play, and it has caused a lot of panic. Like, people are now afraid to reply to people that might post things that might be considered negative, and even if their tweet that they're replying to isn't something that's bad according to Twitter, if they posted other bad things, then it's possible that it could get you deboosted. I know that Shane was working, I think, with Terra, and Brock was working with Terra, and they have been looking at a lot of accounts, and they notice what Terra is saying. I don't know the coding behind it, but there were several accounts that had similar things, and they ended up getting ads back on those accounts and got them deboosted as well. Deboosted as well.
So boosted.
So,
Sarah,
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go to Khaleesi, then I'll go to Sarah.
Yeah. I just want to say, look, the thing that this comes down to for me is a complete lack of transparency. When I go to Elon's profile and I search, he talks a really big game about making everything transparent. And I heard somebody say on this space earlier about give it time. Like, we're using this now, give it time, as a blanket kind of excuse without any kind of, we're not quantifying what time means. Is it months? Is it because there's a plan in place? Is it because that plan to address these issues has been made visible to us and we have a roadmap for it? So for 8 months, we've been giving it time. Now, he said he'd made the algorithm completely open source, but my understanding is that part of it's blacklisted. And the blacklisted part of it is, the kind of things that would make your account blacklisted. So what are the trigger words that you use?
That's not how it works. The thing that's blacklisted is that you don't have the data. Like, we don't have the data that the code runs with and through, but we have the code that determines what appears in your feed. Like, these things exist. We can read the source code, and I feel like we're all taking our individual experiences with one-off bad things that happened to our friends' accounts and trying to prescribe what's happening.
Theo, sorry, let me just ask you a question then, because you interjected me there. Are you saying the algorithm is completely transparent, so you can tell me what words would actually deboost my account and literally what words to that extent, and nothing is blacklisted and nothing is hidden? Categorically, is that what you're telling me, Theo?
No, I think that we're mixing up a lot of these different words.
Yeah.
We have now conflated reach and algorithmic discovery with advertising and advertisement payouts, with blacklisting, with shadow banning, and tweet cred. All 5 of these are different things.
I haven't talked about advertising. I just wanted to ask you a straight question.
But the issue around certain words causing your account to get what you're referring to as deboosted, that's not an algorithm problem. that is a shadow banning problem. And I agree, there's probably some amount of shadow banning that occurs when certain things are talked about. And it sucks that there's not more transparency about that. I'm not here to say otherwise. I'm saying that we know how the algorithm works. The algorithm works when a piece of content performs well in a group of people that have some shared characteristic. Let's say all of them liked this specific tweet last week. And of the people who liked that tweet last week that saw your tweet, all of them liked it. Twitter will then start recommending that tweet to the people who liked the similar one before based on the user engagement patterns and behaviors. It has almost nothing to do with which words are in the tweet.
So Theo, let me go to Ryan. I know I was going to go to Sarah and then I'm going to go to Alpha, but let me go to Ryan first, because Ryan, you've also read the source code and you were saying that you completely disagree with what Theo's saying, so go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Can you guys hear me clearly? Just want to be sure because I have audio issues sometimes. Okay, perfect. So yes, Theo unfortunately is completely wrong. So there's every single one of your tweets gets evaluated. The first thing that gets evaluated, Khaleesi hinted at it, it's called blacklisted topics. It's literally, that's the variable name in the code. It literally goes through it. But the funny part is this quote unquote open source algorithm does not provide you with what these blacklisted topics are. I even called out Elon. I said, Elon, what are these topics so we can play your game? You made the code open source. You want your books on the table, open books on the table, correct? So give us what this dark set of rules are that we can evaluate. But the problem is we don't know what these are. And this could be anything. It could be you're not allowed to talk about Pizza Hut because I own Domino's stock, for example. But until we know what these are, your code is not open source. And every single freaking tweet gets evaluated by this function of the algorithm. It's literally called a public void evaluate. The function is evaluate. Your tweet goes in it. It gets checked for the blacklisted topics, runs an offensive filter on it, runs a bunch of different preconditions and stuff on it right now. I'm literally looking at the chunk of code right now. And it runs through this, but we don't know what these topics are. That's the problem. Until you know what those topics are, you don't have an open source. Open source by definition means open. Everything is visible, naked, and open. And this isn't proprietary, right? This isn't a proprietary part of the algorithm that Twitter or X, is using in order to be like, okay, we're going to be way better than Meta or Threads or whoever else. No. This is certain topics that they've chosen to not allow you to know what they are, so that when you tweet about them.
So Ryan, I mean, thanks for explaining that. That's very interesting. But just another question. You sent me some code. You were like process, raw count. What does that mean?
Yes, so I was referring to, that's from Theo's extension. So Theo's extension in order to calculate how much money is made is based off of, again, Theo, correct me if I'm wrong, but I looked through you have an open source code. You actually have open source because I can look through every single part of your code and I can actually see all the stuff. So versus Elon's open source half-ass definition, I can actually see everything, which is awesome. And I appreciate you doing that. But Theo, and again, I know that in your code you also said it's an estimation, but it's based off of just view count and multiplying it by a number. But we know that that's
my
give
code.
me 1 second. Let me just finish my sentence. I'm just because we know that the monetization is based off of an infinite set of variables, which again is not also open source. That's the issue that I have when people come on these spaces, especially huge. This is the biggest space on the platform, obviously, right? Biggest space. Shout out to these guys. But when people come out and defend this as being open source and these guys are fully transparent, they're not. Right? When Soleiman
Ryan, I have a question for you too. I have a question for you.
Of course, man. But when Soli gets paid pennies on the dollar, literally pennies on the dollar, versus someone who's tweeting about very similar topics, I'm not going to name names, but that person is friends with Elon directly, but Soli isn't. That's just, to me, that's first of all, that's bias, and second of all, it's not transparency. Yes, sure, you guys are giving the definition of in time. He said that back in February, he said he's going to give us this ad share revenue. It's not about time. He can they have the code. The code is calculating how much money you make. He can make that code open source and you can see how it's being calculated. YouTube gives you that. YouTube gives you the CPM or the RPM, and you're able to see how much money.
Why this doesn't work that way.
Okay, so go ahead and explain.
Can I respond to things about me? Thank you. Cool.
Of course, go ahead. But I want to have the right to be able to respond back to you as well.
Of course, yeah. So 3 specific things I want to cover. Please don't cut me off until I've briefly touched on all of them. The first is my extension and how it works. I literally my extension was made largely as a joke based on my guess of my experience on Twitter. I looked at the 90 days that I was assuming were the 90 days I was monetized for. I took my impression count. I took the amount of money I made. I divided it by the impression count. I hard coded that value and I just multiply it and throw it in the browser because I thought it was funny. And it's kind of useful to me for the niches that I am in and for my audience, because it's based on my numbers, but everywhere in all of the things I posted about the extension, I have put in all caps, this is a rough estimate, do not trust it. I am basically making a joke with this extension. It's not meant to be the super reliable thing. It's just a multiplier based on my experience, and I wouldn't expect it to be even close to accurate for people outside of the tech niche or even within the tech niche. The second thing I wanted to talk about quick is open source and how it works. Open source means open source code. And both Twitter's algorithm and most of my open source work fall under that definition. The stuff that you've been touching on here is not the source code, it is data that goes through the source code. I think there should probably be more transparency around things that are like less changing, such as blacklist values, so we can understand what those are. But those probably change a lot internally at Twitter, and those aren't things that are encoded in source, which is the definition of open source. Those are things that are in a database or another storage system that are interfacing with the source code. And you don't just expose your database to the world when you open source things. You might put out test data. There's a lot of things in the AI world that have open source their like training algorithm, but they haven't open sourced the data they use to train it. That's been going on for the last 15 years. And there's some amount of argument as to whether or not this is within the spirit of open source, but we've pretty much blanket agreed within the engineering world that it's 100% within the spirit of open source to open source the code that you use to process data without giving away the data for free. The third thing I wanted to touch on is the misunderstanding with CPMs, because this keeps on coming up in this Twitter space. The difference between Twitter and other platforms is that the majority of the ads that you'll be making money on Twitter are not being served on your profile or in your tweets. They're being served around them as people scroll through the Twitter feed. Because of that, your advertising is not targeting a specific tweet, and no specific tweet has a CPM based on the tweet, its audience, its content. Your profile doesn't have a CPM based on all of these things either. It all comes down to the experience that an advertisement member or that a viewer or Twitter user has, and how much money advertisers are paying Twitter to target a specific viewer of Twitter. And then after we have done that calculation, we take the things they have looked at through their time. Let's say, again, the example was $5. Advertisers pay $5 to target a specific user as they're browsing Twitter. They spend half of their time looking at your tweets, half of their time looking at my tweets. $2.50 of the $5 is determined to go to creators. We both make $1.25 in this theoretical scenario. It's a very different platform in that way, and the expectations we have around how YouTube works are not going to work here because content isn't specifically targeted with advertisements.
All right, I'm just gonna let Ryan respond to you, Theo,
Yes,
and then
please.
I'll go to. I did say Sarah wasn't able a chance to jump in yet, and Alpha, so I'll go to them after that. Ryan, go ahead.
So Theo, regarding the engineering world, I'm a computer engineer. I got my bachelor's degree from NYU in computer engineering. If you'd like, I can send you that. So engineering world, I'm there. I've operated, I've built startups, I've done whatever I need to do. So engineering world, I'm in there. I understand it. Believe me, I'm part of all of that. 1, 2, you mentioned data. I agree with you. Data is not shared, but this is a function. This is not data. This is code. That is a function. It's not data.
What's the name of the function again?
Code. Okay, I'll read it to you. Give me 1 second. It is within the too many tabs. Give me
While
1
you're
second.
reading it, can I just remind people to retweet this space because it's extremely informative and it has answered so many of my questions. And I think other people need to be hearing this because there's just so many people in a tailspin right now trying to figure out what's going on. And these guys are obviously extremely smart, know what they're talking about, and are digging into the code. So retweet the space. If you haven't done it, you can go to Mario's profile and just retweet it from there.
Can I jump in for 1 second? Because you guys are talking about things that are being like people who are being
can I answer
deboosted and stuff like that. Like, how do we figure that out? Because like I've heard everyone I know thinks they're being shadow banned right now.
Bro, we're not talking about shadow ban right now. Let us finish the algorithm.
Just 1 second. Yeah, just Paul, 1 second. Let Ryan respond, and then we come to the rest of the hands. Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, it's called blacklisted topics, Theo. It's literally blacklisted topics and camel case. So if that's what you want to look for and take a look at it, go ahead.
That goes to a configuration file, Ryan. It's like a global parameter that gets set in a configuration file. Right, but they have that. So why won't they make that available?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is that if this is open source, I agree with you. If it was proprietary, don't share. But this is part of a main function that's running. So technically, you're open source. By definition of open source, I should be able to take this code and redistribute it and use it myself. I cannot take this code by the engineering definition of open source that you stated to me and repurpose and use this code because there's a function in there that I have no idea what it does. It's like if you gave me code and a chunk of it is in there and you don't tell me how it operates and you don't tell me how to use it, and then you expect me to go out there and operate with it. It just won't work. It's like a car that has no pedal. I won't be able to drive it.
I think I understand the specific misconception here. There's a very common pattern at companies that are bigger than 10 engineers, where rather than exposing APIs that are like endpoints you hit to get data, they'll expose it through the form of a package. But the source code for the, what's the name of the place that goes top? It's the internal text topic package at Twitter is almost certainly literally just a blank wrapper to authenticate and respond with data from a database. That's not code that's running. That's not some crazy algorithm piece that we're not getting. It's literally just returning a string list.
It's not though, but it's using it to evaluate that function. That function without that, until if you remove that chunk of the function, it will not give you the same result and same outcome. Do you agree to that point at least?
Yeah, if you don't have the same data, it won't have the same outcome.
All right. So if I put a tweet in there and that's there and versus that not being there, I'm going to get two different value results out of that. Correct? Correct?
You can put the same same algorithm twice and get different results.
That does not make any sense, because I'm taking this function, I'm putting the same exact tweet through it. Let's say 2 raw profiles, never tweeted before. If I put the same exact tweet, hello world, which you and I both know what it is, into this function, we should get the same exact result back. Correct, Theo?
Not necessarily.
Now you're making excuses, my friend, from an engineering world. You know the answer.
No, I'm not. No,
Theo,
it
the answer is yes.
Isn't.
Theo, this is
Can I ask Ryan a question before we move on?
Sully, this is computer science, and he's playing us.
Yeah,
bro.
I get it. I think you clarified your point. I think you smashed it. Sarah, let me jump in for Sarah. Let me jump into Sarah because let me jump to Sarah so she can give her point. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I think that
Alpha and then Brandon.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So I just wanted to go back to something that Ms. Tara was trying to say, and somebody cut her off. But what she was trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, is that there's a big difference between deboosted and being shadow banned. And what she was talking about was her tweets were being deboosted and they were not showing ads until she stopped or limited her interaction with certain accounts. And I think, Theo, you called that a one-off, but it's not a one-off. That lots and lots of people have shown that if they stop, if they remove a retweet, if they take away likes, if they remove certain tweets, suddenly ads appear. And it's not happening over weeks, days, or months. It's happening almost instantly. So for example, if I retweeted Tara's pinned tweet and she were deboosted, I'm not talking shadow banned, if she were deboosted, my ads would be removed almost immediately. And that is something that people are trying to figure out, because there is no transparency that anybody can find in any of the code. I think Ryan explained it pretty well, that there are even keywords that can get you deboosted, not necessarily shadow banned. And those are two separate topics. And you keep saying that we're conflating them, but we aren't. And here's something else. And I know it's a hot point for a lot of people, but I don't have ads that appear on any of my tweets, 0. And I don't tweet about any, Sully will tell you, I don't tweet about anything profound. I tweet about my dogs. I post a stupid selfie and, just my general everyday life, but I don't get ads under my tweets for whatever reason, but I do get paid. And so if I'm getting paid with no advertisements and I have a quarter of the engagement, and I'm just going to throw you out there, Suleiman, I get a quarter, maybe even less than, of the engagement that he gets, and yet I get paid more. Now that's a flaw in the system. That there is something wrong there that many people, that are not willing to say out loud, and that's okay. We can be critical of this app and not be afraid. I love Twitter, or X. I'm not leaving. I tweeted for free before, and I'll tweet long after. But I just don't understand the pushback when people are making very legitimate claims stating that this is happening and they are not one-offs. Thank you.
And I just want to say, Sarah, your stuff is actually good. We have a bit of banter, but Sarah's stuff is really good.
You know what? I mean, listen. My stuff is garbage, but it's nice garbage. But I don't attack. I don't attack anybody. I tweet my dog and I tweet just, normal stuff, but I don't get ads. And I went to Khaleesi's account while somebody was yapping. I went to Tara's account, May's, Ryan. They all have ads. And I am willing to bet that I made just as much money, if not more than them. Tell me why, Theo. Tell me how that works.
Might be because you're friends with the Krastensteins. We don't know. Alpha, go ahead. What is your thoughts?
You're not allowed to criticize
they're
on the platform.
They're my best friends. I love them. I want to get my millions now. So if that's how it works,
pay the woman. Pay the woman.
Right, Alpha, if that's how it works, listen, Sully. I'll just say this really quickly. I'm so sorry, but if that's how it works, if it works by association, which I do think that in some ways it does, then why wouldn't it work in the opposite? Why, if I am engaging with nefarious, terrible accounts, would it not deboost me and remove my ad rev things?
It doesn't work that way in the positive sense. What's happening there, the reason that the people who get replied to by Elon have huge boosts in their payouts is because a lot of Elon's audience is a particularly high value audience. Like, I don't follow any of the accounts he replies to, but they're often in my feed because I follow him as an engineer and founder. I know a lot of people who regularly complain about the random stuff ending up in their feed just because Elon replied to it. What Elon's doing is, by replying, people who follow him and look at his stuff are now seeing those things, which is an audience that's very different from the audience that a lot of those creators normally have. And his audience is, for what I would hope are obvious reasons, more valuable than a lot of the average audiences on Twitter. That's where that's coming from.
I mean, is it really like Musk's audience is a large proportion of Twitter? Like, he's got 150 million followers. I wouldn't say it's the cream of the crop. It's just nearly a large proportion of Twitter. But Alpha, what's your thoughts? I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, I sound okay?
Yeah, bro, much better, much better.
All right, cool. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I found myself doing what a lot of you guys were saying, where you're trying to modify your content to try to match advertisers' revenue policies. But yeah, I don't want to do that either. I mean, that's no fun. I mean, I made a second account just so I can have another area for more risky stuff, if you will. But yeah, what I wanted to say was, I heard that Twitter's aware of the account-wide issue with as far as putting ads on your feed under your comments. I mean, right now it's account-wide. So if you have one tweet or post that screws up your monetization, your whole account will get jacked. So I was talking to somebody, and he told me that they're aware of that, and they're trying to change it to just deboost that one tweet instead of all of them. So. But yeah, it really stinks. There's no transparency. You don't know what you're doing wrong. You know, your views go from, million a day to millions a day to, a tenth of that overnight. It's like, what the heck did I do? So it's super frustrating. And Elon's pledged to make this, you can make your living off of here. Not right now. It's so variable and weird. You don't know what's going on. So I know he's said he's trying to improve that with more transparency, but right now there just really isn't any. And hopefully that comes soon.
Yeah, and that's all we ask for. For me, it's always two things with Twitter. What I want: transparency and consistency. And that's not just on the ad issue, but all issues in terms of shadow banning and banning people. We know certain people have hold certain ideological positions may get banned, but then others don't. So I just want those two things: consistency and transparency. Brandon, I know you had a question and just to be clear, like what you said, Alpha. You make an excellent point, and I think a lot of people have made some really good points today, that we don't want the content on Twitter to change. Twitter is amazing because this is what it is. Like, I can go and attack conservatives, I can attack liberals, I can attack people with certain positions, not with other positions. Like, because we have such diversity on Twitter, we can just basically converse with anybody and debate with them. The concern is now that basically, in order to get the bag, if you need to have a specific ideological position to get the advertisers, Twitter's going to be boring. Like, everyone's going to have the same view. It'll be dead. Brandon, I know you got a question for Ryan. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Now can I pull it together? Okay. So I think what I was going to say was that we learned through the Twitter files, and I believe this was directly through from Elon and other people, that the Twitter 1.0 had put different tags they'd put on people's accounts that had different effects, different restrictions, different ways to prevent people from having reach and various things. Ryan, you said something, and I don't remember exactly the term you used, but what did you call it? Blacklist what?
Blacklisted topics.
Okay. So, and you're saying that according to you, you're saying that, and by the way, I'm on your side, but I just want to be clear. According to you, every tweet that goes out gets an assignment of how it is blacklisted or not blacklisted. Is that correct?
Brandon, it's not according to me. It's according to the source code that they put out. Every single tweet gets.
Yeah, I'm with you.
By this function. Yeah, no, you're correct. Yeah, that's correct. I'm
yeah.
just giving
Okay.
you the source. Yeah.
Perfect. So my question is, since we know that there were bad actors in Twitter, and I believe still are, and probably fairly plentiful, who are assigning tags to people's accounts, and probably arbitrarily in many cases, probably just public personalities they don't like, or people with political ideologies that they don't like. Is it not possible that they could have assigned tags to people's accounts to make sure that every single tweet that they put out gets a bad blacklist rating, no matter what the tweet is?
I think you answered your own question, and the answer is yes. They can do.
Well, but I'm asking an engineer.
They can do whatever they want on the back end, and you won't even see it. That's the crazy thing about this coach. They can label you Brandon and be like, okay, we're gonna make sure Brandon's account, whenever he tweets, only like 50 people will see it. The only reason we know how many people see our tweets now is they added the view function. Before that, we had no idea.
Exactly. And this is exactly the point that I was making earlier. I think the biggest source of frustration for people is that they rolled out this monetization, and it does look, this is just my own thing. People can agree or disagree. It does feel like there's a handful of accounts that got a lot of preferential treatment and a lot of boosting. That's regardless. It's beside the point. It doesn't even matter. But I don't think they should have rolled out this monetization before they addressed that first issue, because people have no idea if their accounts are ever going to be cleaned up, if tags that were applied are ever going to be removed, if the restrictions are ever going to be removed. And meanwhile, you just have all these people being like, we're making so much money on Twitter. Twitter's great. It's the place to be if you want to make money. It's like, no, there's a lot of people, like many people believe that they have tags on their account that they will never be able to succeed if these things aren't removed. And that is not being addressed or talked about.
I think you made some good points there. Maze, I want to come to you. I know you've had your hand up for a while. Oh, sorry, and then I'll go to Wall Street straight after that. But Maze, we're talking about ad revenue, and we are going to go on to the ticketed spaces and block function in a bit. But in terms of, again, because Brandon's and Ryan have just hit on some interesting points in terms of the block function, in terms of certain words being blocked. And one of my friends did go through some tests, and he has made a list of certain words that he thinks are in that function. But my question to you is, we've got the block function, and then we've also got people who are actually shadow banned, and then we've got people who are banned. And again, banning, like, we don't know what the transparency is. There's no transparency in terms of what the ban system is. Like, we have a scenario where someone like, for example, Nick Fuentes is banned, but then someone like Amy Mack isn't. And so where is the consistency and where is the transparency in terms of that? So in terms of that larger issue of banning and this much more acute issue of ad revenue.
So I think that's, to be honest, I just sat here for a minute and tried to imagine how they would be able to share that infamous list of what it is that flags accounts. There has to be some sort of global parameters that are set somewhere that are saying, if this, then do this, right? And so whatever those are, I think it would be, that's a scary thing to kind of drop, because I think that there's probably influences to some degree that maybe he's dealing with that he can't necessarily reveal them. I don't know, but I think that is a major question. I mean, clearly there has to be something that's being set in the system that could be revealed to people, but I think that there would maybe be some backlash to that. Now, as far as the ad revenue, let's just say that there's the people who are able to get into the basket for the advertisers to make their choices. And let's just say someone who has 85 million, I don't know, impressions a month. I mean, that's a little overboard, but however, whatever they're tweeting about isn't relevant to the advertisers. And so they're just not paying for it. So I think, to answer Sarah's question, they would probably see the smaller checks, because people they're not being chosen as the ones to get their ads. Now, when it comes to the fact that it's interdependent on other accounts, that's the part that I think, is a problem, because it's kind of like these types of infringements are like hanging on to people's accounts. And if I go and I retweet something on one of those accounts, then I get the ding too. And I think it just continues to go downstream. And so people, if they were, let's just say, trying to monetize and actually, kind of exclusively make their money from Twitter, that's a huge risk factor right there, because, you know, anything could happen to where they might just get deboosted immediately, and who knows how long. Because, and my final little point is that there's really no customer service either. You know what I mean? Like, there's no one you could call. There's no one that's, you know, responding to you to be like, oh, this is what you need to do, or it's going to take X amount of days. I mean, even the time for it to get remediated varies. And so I think that those are the questions that I have around that. And so, yeah.
And most of us would pay for that, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, just 1 second, Brandon. I just want to jump into what May said. I think it's quite profound, because when Ryan and Theo were having the exchange, I'd initially raised the blacklist. And okay, maybe it's not part of the source code. That's semantics, though. I don't, you know, it's irrelevant where it sits. The fact is there is a blacklist which is hidden, which doesn't tell us. And Theo, your kind of comeback on that was it probably changes on a daily basis. I'm sure they can make it visible if it indeed does change. And this is your thinking behind it on a daily basis, which I doubt. But no, Theo, let me finish, please, first. Right? If it indeed does change, I don't believe it would. I think they have the trigger words. I think they have the categories that are blacklisted. My concern is for transparency. I'm not monetized. I applied for subscriptions many months ago. People who have subsequently applied after me have got their subscriptions, but I haven't. Fine, whatever. I was shadow banned for 4.5 months. And what May says is absolutely correct. As a you know, blue tick kind of account, there are many different help sections, and I wrote to every single one of them. And they all bounced back and said, not our department, no, go to some other help section. There was nobody. You can write to every single one, and not one person would pick that up to address the shadow ban. And there is and we have to differentiate, because when I mentioned to you, Theo, earlier about deboosting, you said that shadow banning. It's not. Your account can be deboosted without being shadow banned. I had no knowledge why I was shadow banned. There was no transparency around it. And I firmly believe, and I was subsequently, then it was clarified by somebody who works for X, that it was to do with something that I had posted. But Elon talks a great game about visibility. Elon talks a great game. I accept that advertisers will choose where they want to put their adverts, and there's nothing anyone can do about that. But let's not conflate the two issues. We're talking about, fine, you know, freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. That's fine as well, but at least make that visible and let people know what it is. Some people may subscribe and say, actually, you know what, I want to keep my profile really good because I want the money. And other people like myself will say, well, that's okay. At least I know what the consequences are, and I'm going to carry on doing what I think I want to do. Because for some people, it's just about getting the message out there as opposed to making money. So it's not all just about the money aspect. But go ahead, Theo.
I actually agree with a decent bit of what you and Maze just said. In particular, the lack of support is egregious. I watched a lot of my experience is going to relate to Twitch, because that's the company I watched grow, scale, and succeed and fail in all these ways. Having your support grow with the demand for support is super important. And the fact that they significantly increased the burden that they have to deal with in terms of creators trying to figure out if their accounts are banned, if they are shadow banned, if they're demonetized, if why their payouts aren't coming through, why their subscriptions aren't happening. All of those things are massive support burdens, and they have not stepped up to take that on. Totally agree there. As for the banned terms list, these things are on every platform, kept relatively secret, because it's a cat and mouse game. If we say the specific terms or topics that aren't allowed, they will just be rephrased and reframed in different ways. I think there's a future where Twitter's much more transparent, similar to when you're replying something and it says, hey, are you sure you want to reply that? This might be considered offensive. They should do that type of thing with more types of posts. Run it through the algorithm ahead of time and let you know before you post, hey, this does not align with what our goals are as a platform. Just a heads up. It would be awesome to have more transparency about all of these things. But doing that is not just a switch you hit. It's not just a button you click. It's a huge shift in how the security model of the platform has to work, because now you've given the bad actors the tools they need to work around the system by giving them that level of transparency. And transparency and consistency are the direct opposition of both safety security as well as advertisement interests. These things inherently conflict, and finding the balance is difficult. I'm not saying they shouldn't put the time in. I'm not saying it's okay that they haven't gotten the stuff working yet. And I certainly cannot even begin to excuse the state of the support in like the paths there. I'm lucky that I have friends at Twitter that can fix things when they're being weird. And even I have not been able to get my subscriptions turned on, even though I applied in, I think, April, maybe March. I still haven't gotten it activated. I have the exact same error that you do, Khalees. I think they're just going through the App Store. Man, do I wish they would have like an ex-creators account where they put out these things like, hey, by the way, we're not going to be able to add new people on subscriptions for the next 2 months. You can still apply, but it's not going to happen for a bit. Or, hey, this topic keeps coming up. We're concerned about it on the platform. Don't post about this. Like, just being that level of transparent absolutely would be awesome. And I do wish we would see more of that.
Can I
agree, Theo, what you just no, go ahead, Tara, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say part of me wishes that they would have held off on, providing these ad revenue payouts until this was all a little bit more transparent. But then the other part of me, the competitive part of me, understands the rush to do it, especially with, Threads and Zuckerberg's copying everything that, Elon's doing here and trying to essentially start his own version of X and wanting to drive traffic back here. Not that it even really needed to happen that way, but I think it really did help and spark people, especially creators, to come back, put their content on this platform, which is beneficial to all of us here. So it's almost like a catch-22 for me. In some ways, I can empathize with Elon and the team and the decision making. And in other ways, I just sort of wish that transparency would happen sooner. And I also want to agree with you in the fact that if they just release all of these words, there will be ways around it. And my biggest fear, and something I know that they really, have worked diligently to crack down on, is protecting children on this platform and not allowing exploitation of children here. And I do feel that that's a huge danger and a huge risk if they put out all of the words that essentially hurt you or put you on these lists or get you banned, then people will find ways to get around it. And I'm not talking about the people here. I'm not talking about the good people who outweigh the bad, but there are bad people who will, use that to their advantage. So I can 100% agree there with what Theo was saying.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I just wanted to add there to what you were saying, Theo. You know what, I agree. Okay, support and everything else, I think we're aligned on that. Just something that you said and Tara's just mentioned. You're right. Okay, so people may find ways around it. I think what you proposed, Theo, in terms of, some sort of a pop-up saying, are you sure you want to post this? I think that works, okay? Because what's happening now, right, is Elon is the guy that came on this platform, bought it, came on Spaces and said, oh, it's going to be, I'm going to keep censorship free. I don't care what advertisers want, and I don't care what what revenue. I'd rather lose the revenue than compromise the kind of free speech element of this platform. And he talks about transparency all the time. So okay, that may be one of the reasons, and we're speculating here, that they're not making this blacklist transparent to us, but then that goes completely against what Elon came on this platform and spoke about. But even if you put that aside, the consequences of not giving transparency on the blacklist is that right at this moment in time, people that haven't been monetized and the only comparables they've got is the kind of people who've had a certain amount of interaction and they've got a certain amount of followers, but they've been paid far less than other people. It's down to, well, maybe it's because of my political position that I'm taking. Is it because, and people do speculate this, right? Is it because I'm a Trump supporter? Is it because I'm a Republican? Is it all the Dems are getting paid? All the people on the left are getting paid? People who Elon Musk likes are getting paid? And I'm sure that people on this platform have heard this again and again and again. So now there's almost this environment which isn't one about putting the message out there. It's about looking at each other, wondering why people haven't been paid enough. It's not cohesive, and I think it's causing more damage than actually making that blacklist visible would do when you balance it up.
I really don't agree, specifically because of the safety issue. Like, a lot of the things on that list are going to be really, really bad things you don't want on a platform.
Sure,
Things
so
that I don't even
off
want
the
to
list.
bring up and say.
So Theo, leave those off the list. The scary black market stuff, leave that off the list. The stuff like the fact that people can't tweet about certain topics, make those visible. Like, for example, we know certain topics that we're not allowed to talk about on this platform because it deboosts those posts. Put those out there, make those visible. But the dangerous stuff that you guys are talking about, don't post those. That's fine. We all know what those are. The problem is the stuff that we don't know about. That's what's that question here. That's the big issue here.
I'd go as far as to say that the conflation that like Twitter has done of like like felony offense type content on Twitter and topics they just don't want people talking about at an algorithmic level, probably wasn't the best way to implement that. But that's why they have all of these like 15 different systems that we keep on conflating and confusing. Like the difference between deboosting and shadow banning and actual banning is things that like I don't even fully understand after reading the code for days. And the thing that is important to understand is that we can't just hit a button and make this transparent. Finding the way to do this correctly, where advertisers are happy and don't do a massive pullout, where creators feel like they understand why their content isn't reaching an audience the ways that they believe it should or shouldn't, and that like the platform stays safe throughout. That is a really, really hard thing to do all of at once. And one point that keeps coming up that I'm starting to agree with more is that rushing to get the monetization out before solving a lot of these transparency and just information issues might not have been the best move, because it's going to drive even more speculation around things that are much simpler if you're willing to take a step back and think through like the incentive structure of making a platform that has advertisers, that keeps people using the platform and producing value in a capitalist economy. It just, I feel like we get so lost in the individual details about like politics and people's interest in Elon's friends that we're losing the bigger picture of a business trying to make itself like monetizable and profitable in the future.
Let me go to Paul. I know, Paul, you've had your hand up for a while, and then we'll go to Wall Street Silver. Go ahead, Paul.
I just wanted to ask Khaleesi, because she brought up that she had been either deboosted or she said shadow banned. And then she went to Twitter and they explained to her what happened. And I'm wondering if she would share like what she had done specifically, because I mean, I don't want to say names or anything, but like I've been told by people with like over 1 million followers that they think that they're shadow banned. And like I am like contacted like once a week by people like, would you talk to Elon? Why am I shadow banned? I'm like, I don't know anything about shadow ban. Could you explain that? And could we talk about it a little bit? Like, I feel like everyone thinks they're being shadow banned now.
Yeah, no, but I was shadow banned and it was confirmed. I mean, so you couldn't actually search for me. If I came on this Mario space, they couldn't even offer me the mic. They couldn't find me, even though both Mario and Suleiman, we all follow each other. People, if I was running a space, they actually couldn't find me. They'd have to go to their DMs where I DM'd them to find my profile to then join my space. My posts were completely, like they weren't even getting 2 or 3 likes because I just wasn't visible at all. And we checked it out and I was shadow banned, and it was back in April. I'd posted something that had been flagged, but nobody told me. That too, I believe that was the actual reason why. And then I was told various other things by other people, but it wasn't the truth that was the reason why I was shadow banned. And then my shadow ban was lifted, and it was only lifted because we ran a campaign.
But can you explain what did you do? Like, what was the terrible thing you did that like caused this to happen? Like, what was your action?
I posted some videos of when Israel had the onslaught against Gaza. I posted the videos of I think it was one of the first nights, the children that were killed in Gaza. I posted, it wasn't their faces, it wasn't anything really gruesome, but it was just some videos around that. And I tell you what, every single day I see far worse on this platform, far worse from people who are not shadow banned. And I believe one of them was, there was a bot, one of the, I don't know, there was some bot attached to it saying it was sensitive or something. This is what I was told, it was flagged. And that flag hadn't been removed. And since that video, I was shadow banned.
So it'd be fair. So it would be fair to say that like was over, like not over something like over gore or anything like that. It was just basically politics. It was just politics.
It was because of politics. It wasn't anything gore. I mean, I was never asked to take down that video, and there were things that I posted after that. I mean, this thing, with Israel and Palestine lasted for weeks, and I carried on posting stuff, but it was just one video, the initial one, which was flagged, and it shadow banned my account. Even to this day, I've never been asked to take anything down, and this was my frustration.
So to be clear, right? So to be clear, like you were not shadow banned because of the video, but because of the ideological position.
It was. And this was my frustration, because the thing is, like, nobody tells you why you're shadow banned. You're instantly shadow banned of a political position that I had taken, because there was far worse coming out from other accounts and they weren't shadow banned. And I do believe this is the case. If I'm really honest with you, Paul, it was because of a position I'd taken. I've never been asked, and this is the frustrating thing, right? So nobody from Twitter reached out to me ever to say, and to date, to say your post is unacceptable, you've got hate speech, this is sensitive content, this is unacceptable, you can't say this. I mean, because I don't troll anybody, okay? So I don't use foul language, I don't troll, I don't post anything that I think is, unacceptable or not PG or something like that. So it's quite a clean account. The only thing with my account is I take a strong position on some kind of political aspects, let's just put it that way. And so there's a high chance I'll probably get shadow banned again because I'm going to carry on speaking about these things, but it is what it is. This is why when Ryan was talking earlier, he was talking about the fact that there should be transparency on these things. And I'll tell you why I think they won't give transparency, because I think if like some of the countries that the human rights atrocities that are going on, I'm speaking about them. If that was on the blacklist, and I suspect it is because 2 of the advisors that Elon Musk uses are from the ADL. So if that was on the blacklist and people saw it was on the blacklist, I mean, can you imagine the reaction that would, X and Elon would get? Because it is complete censorship, ideological censorship, political censorship going on. So that's why I believe it will not be made public. But let's go to some of the hands. Go ahead, Theo.
Well, I just wanted to say this real quick, and I'm going to hop down.
Can I ask a question first?
Just wait 1 second, Theo. I'll come to you. Let's just go to Mace quickly. Go ahead, Mace.
Yeah, I have to hop down for a minute, but I just wanted to let everybody know that if you want to check to see if you're just a helpful tool for you to check to see if you're shadow banned, you can go to this one site. You can just type in Google. It's the very first thing that'll come up that says Twitter shadow ban, and then it'll show you the 4 different kinds of bans and which ones apply. And I also wanted to highlight Theo's suggestion that I think was a great suggestion, is that whatever that process is that it goes through after launching a tweet, if that were to be able to be more upfront and give you an option or let you know that this would in some way deboost you, but still give you the option if you still want to post it, by all means go ahead, but this would impact where you are in terms of your social status in the app. I think that's an excellent option for now, right? If they don't want to change what's going on in the background, at least make it more upfront for the users. But this is an excellent conversation. I just got to make a phone call and I will drop down, but I'll be back.
Appreciate you coming on, Amiz. Theo, go ahead. You were going to jump in, so go ahead, and then I'll go to Sarah.
Yeah. The fact that a video is the thing that was flagged is particularly interesting. I obviously wish that they would give you a notification like, hey, this video might be deemed offensive. Are you okay with taking it down? My question would be, is it possible that there are other versions of the video that have seconds or frames within them shared that aren't within Twitter's terms of service, such as there is violence in one that isn't the one you shared, to be clear, but there's a longer version or a different edit of the same video that could have much more offensive content within it. Is that possible?
Probably. Khaleesi?
What you're asking me, that is it possible that there was another version of that might have been more offensive or violent or something?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it wasn't the case because I'll tell you why, Theo. Literally, I was running a 29-hour space. It was the first night, and as those videos were coming out, there was no editing, there was nothing like that. It was live. Literally, I was posting it live as they were coming out. So it wasn't that they were edited, there was longer versions, it was cut short or anything like that. None of that, no.
Let me go to Sarah. Sarah, go ahead, jump in.
I understand the blacklist. I get it. I understand that there are certain words, phrases, or ideologies that are terrible. But I don't see the problem in sharing that. I know that people can get around it. They can use different words or phrases that mean the same thing. But if we know what they are, if Twitter were to release that, X were to release that, there would be a backlash, and a backlash that I don't think that they want to necessarily have rain down on them at this point, because we're already holding Twitter Spaces all the time on AdRev, on the new block function. We're seeing those on a daily basis, and people know now how to get around offensive content. I think that they wouldn't release it because they don't want the backlash, not simply because they don't want people getting around it. We have pedophiles on this app. They know how to get around their disgusting behavior. They already know. I think that there would be too much of a backlash for them to release it. Like Khaleesi was saying, if people knew, people would be outraged.
Let me go to Wall Street. Wall Street, what's your thoughts about the various discussions we've had today?
Lots of people reach out to me asking, for advice on this because they think I know more, and I don't really, but they ask me a lot. So I've looked at a lot of people's analytics and tried to help them troubleshoot what's going on with their accounts. And honestly, people who tell me they're shadow banned, once I look at their analytics and they're at, it's like they're not shadow banned. It's some, it even happens to me. Sometimes your tweets just suck, all right, and you're just not getting the engagement that you used to. It doesn't necessarily mean you're shadow banned. So I agree there are people getting shadow banned, but I bet you 90% of them are not really shadow banned and their tweets are just sucking for a while. That's my first impression about all this. Second of all, people are thinking that Elon just announced the other day that they're getting rid of this tweet cred system. He said it's going to be gone, but give them time. It's going to take, it takes a week or two, or maybe even longer, to change the code, put it through QA, then do a release. These things just don't happen overnight because Elon states, "Hey, tweet cred's going away." You got to give them some time. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
and like you already, Wall Street.
And I think
Keemstar said the exact same thing yesterday before the space crash too, for what it's worth.
Yeah, Wall Street, you make a couple of good points. First of all, you're right. Some things I do take time. I do think with the ad revenue, it was rushed because it was the right decision to do, because you got Threads, a new app coming out. It might become a rival, pull out ad revenue, and then you basically get people to re-engage with Twitter. So it makes sense. But hopefully there's a lot more, it becomes a lot more better. And you're right. There is some people whose tweets aren't that great. They're pretty boring. And they think they're shadow banned for sure. With Khaleesi, I know for a fact she was shadow banned. We got verification on that. But yeah, there are people who that happens to for sure. Let me go to Ryan. Ryan, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the point that I was going to make was the Khaleesi shadow ban, because she was shadow banned. A few people were. You'd go to their profiles and you couldn't see anything. Those are like clear shadow bans. Everything is marked as these posts are sensitive. You weren't able to follow them. You weren't able to see them. They were clearly blocked, and not for anything gory. And even if a video is quote unquote gory, it can be edited. Like platforms, like there's other platforms like TikTok and YouTube, you can edit out certain parts, you can blur certain parts, and it's uploaded and it goes through and it's fine, and those still go there. But none of the stuff that she had posted, that I can at least vouch for, had anything that justifies. It was pure politics. It was a pure political move for both her and Doc.
I think that was a huge jump, because I agree with you up until the last half of the last sentence there, where certainly the content that she was posting was not
every
violent.
word I say, huh, Theo?
No, it's there was a logical jump there that's important, going from the content she posted was fine, and on other platforms it would have been deemed fine, to clearly this is a political incentive. There are so many possibilities between those two. I think the most likely, like having written a lot of the algorithms that do this stuff for my job previously, it is very easy to write an algorithm that's overly aggressive, where you have a piece of content that is against the terms of service and you have banned it or flagged it or done whatever by a human in your system.
Mm-hmm.
And now from that point forward, an algorithm is going to do its best to detect that same content and flag it. I am almost positive that Khaleesi's experience was an erroneous flag that wasn't done on her content. Nobody went to her profile and said,
that's a bit of a, you said you're almost
that's insane, Theo.
That's a huge leap. That's a huge leap.
But what I'm saying is, but the point I was going to make is we all have theories about
Theo,
this.
what happened was she was there's a gamification of the system that's happening that was being done by the DeSantis team on the Trump team with blocking. What they do is they mass report and they mass block you, and you automatically get put into this block, right? Your account automatically gets deboosted, and then eventually gets reviewed if the one thing's posted, and whoever's on the other end can turn the shadow ban thing on. I don't know what the function, how that works.
Do you have sources on this?
What do you mean, the mass blocking and mass reporting?
Yeah, both that like this was done and also that this has a like reasonable
They
like,
DM us.
success
They
rate.
literally DM us death threats and say we have WhatsApp groups
So
where we
we-
send you guys and we mass report you guys.
I was
So
actually
anyway, I
told.
don't want to make this into a DeSantis Trump thing. We've had many spaces on this.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
but
I'm talking about
Theo,
Khaleesi.
just to
Jordan
answer you,
Khaleesi.
Theo, just to respond to you, I was actually told by somebody who did inquire initially from Twitter on as a request that I was being mass reported on a daily basis, and I still am, but that wasn't the reason for my shadow ban. But they did say, wow, she is being mass reported on a daily basis, and it's because of the political positions I take. And I actually agree with what Ryan said. I know you said it was a huge leap, but you can say that, Theo, because if you moved in the spaces that I do, if you talked about the things that I talk about, they are hot topics. I'm not going to lie. They're not, something that is widely accepted. People will not sit on this platform and take the position that I take as boldly as I do. And I do, and I will, and it is because of that. When you look at the community board that Elon has put together, and you look at the representatives on that board, I think I can't remember what he calls it. I think he calls it a committee or something, right? And he put this together in November, so he didn't actually even go into the offices of Twitter until December, but he put this advisory board together in November who were going to guide him as to what's acceptable speech and not acceptable on this platform. There are 4 or 5 people from various different backgrounds, heads of organizations, Latin America, Asian organization, like Black America, Black BLM, the Bush Center, so every racial background is there. There's no religious representation on that board, apart from there are the CEO and the vice president of ADL, and those are the first 2 names on that list. So when I'm speaking, and I only speak politically, okay, so I don't talk about religion hardly ever, but politically, when I'm talking about what one country is doing to another, committing apartheid, and I use that term often, then there's a high likelihood that I will get shadow banned, because if you look at who's advising and who's put the guidelines in place. So I don't think it's as black and white as you're making it out, Theo, and Ryan's right. Yeah.
I'm not trying to make it out as black and white. I'm sorry if I came off that way. I was trying to give an alternative example of a possibility for why this would be happening that has more like automatic paths forward. Generally speaking, when these types of failures occur, it's not because a human had a specific motive for it to occur. It's because a system handled things incorrectly. And that's why I wanted more sources on the mass banning.
That system makes no sense, Phil, because you literally have accounts that are putting
guys, hold on. That's not true. We saw it in the Twitter files.
It's a system made by people.
You have videos that are showing people being shot, people being ran over, people being killed, and it'll get 1 million, 10 million, 20 million views, and it's on there for weeks, and it's never been pulled down. The account does the videos, day after day, doing the same kind of content that supposedly goes against Twitter's terms of service, and it doesn't violate anything. So it has nothing to do with Khaleesi's content or anything like that, because it would affect all these other ones. And you keep bringing up the code, but there's plenty of guys on here that have said that there's at least a third to, if not close to half, the Twitter's code that hasn't been transparent. So a lot of these codes
and 0 of the video
could
code,
exist there.
And there are like 5 misunderstandings there. I don't know how to like even start. I'm going to try and finish the specific point I was making. There are many different possibilities for why this happened. I'm assuming Khaleesi, can I ask a couple more questions to Khaleesi quick?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I'm assuming you've made posts that are more offensive than this video, text posts that take really strong stances on things, both before and after the shadow ban. Is that correct?
No, I don't think there's anything that I will ever, write about that's offensive. I mean, Alpha here follows me, Ryan, Sarah.
Khaleesi, offensive is objective. That's the problem with this question.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, wait,
specifically, I'm saying like the people who would have been upset with your video, are there posts you have made that would have upset the same people more than the video?
I think equally as much. Yeah, Theo. I think equally as much. I think, look, let me put it this way, Theo. I think the people that will have been offended by my video, they would rather I just stop talking about the Israel-Palestine issue overall, because I do post about that. And what I was going to say to you is that if you look across this panel, there are people of different ideologies all following me. If even on listeners, there's Dustin who was up here earlier. I don't even know what their political stance is on the Israel-Palestine issue, but I post what I post, and it's all fact-checked, right? So it's all in line with human rights organizations, with international law. There isn't a black and white about it. It's not an opinion. It's fact that I post, right?
I agree. Absolutely, totally have no reason to disagree with any of that. I'm specifically asking, like, if the assumption is the video post offended somebody at Twitter, on the board, whatever, such that it was decided to shadow ban your account, have you made text posts that would have led them to make that same decision? Yes or no?
No, Theo, no, 1 second. You know what it is? Your question's based on a false premise, because what you're trying to argue is if she's produced other content and she never got shadow banned, which were equally at the same level, and this time it was, what's different? The difference was in that specific situation, as she's mentioned, it was an unusual, not unusual, but it was a specific situation that had been inflamed. There was attacks going on at that time. There was ideological reasons why people didn't want certain narratives to be stated, and other people did want certain narratives to be stated. And so it made logical sense that one would be impacted by a tweet that happens at that exact moment in time, when that same post maybe a few weeks earlier would have had less of an impact and there would be less reason to block. But anyway, I don't want to get I don't want to make the space into like Israel-Palestine thing. Let's move on. The next point I want to talk about is
I didn't get to finish like any of what I was saying.
I don't want to get banned as well. Listen, let me go to ticketed spaces, right? Another point is another thing that I've seen that's going to be coming out is ticketed spaces. Now, Sarah, I know you, if I'm right, did the trial version of these ticketed spaces. You could basically do a space, charge people some money, and then you can make bag that way. And the good thing about that is you're not relying on some random algorithm. Things are not going to go wrong. People love you. You're going to make bag. Sarah, let's talk about ticketed spaces. What do you think is going to go down?
I loved them. I was sad to see them go. Not only could you charge, a nominal fee, 99 cents, I think was the cheapest, and you could go up to $999. But you could also at that time give out 100 free tickets. So I could invite 100 people, make my price $1,000 so that nobody else could join, and I could have this nice private conversation. But if I wanted to, I could have my space price be $5. I did hold several of them. I did make some money. I thought they were a great idea. I think somebody with a larger platform than I have could make a lot of money and be able to speak to their audience about the things that they want to talk about and have a more intimate conversation while also making money. I think it's better than ad rev share.
Boys, I'm going to be making bag. Can't wait. The Big, jump in. What's your thoughts?
I'm just going to hold anti-Suleiman spaces, and I'm going to charge for it at the same time that you have yours.
Oh my God, you got to give me a cut of that. Tara, what do you think about ticketed spaces?
She's going to be my co-host.
No, she supports me. No way, she'll fight against you. It'll be the alternative position. Okay, so not many people. Who wants to talk about ticketed spaces?
I'll talk about it, Sully. I'll take the other side of the argument.
Right, before I do, let me just tell you my views then, because everyone's a bit shy. They all wanted to attack Elon. But point being, if you look at ticketed space as well, what's brilliant about them is you can get like a special guest, a huge special guest, charge people, and they can come in and listen to the spaces. You could also have a scenario where there's a controversial topic. A topic that you ordinarily maybe won't want to talk about in in normal spaces, because someone's recording it, someone's trying to get you cancelled, someone wants to deplatform you. You could do all them spaces. You could talk about controversial issues. You could even do it the way Sarah said, where it's invite only, or you could even charge. So there's lots of awesome ways that this could be used. But Ryan, jump in, bro. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool. But man, the list of people that'd be willing to pay to listen to, especially when platforms like yours brings them on for free, is very short. Like, I don't know who I'm gonna pay, who I'd be like $1, $2, sure, fine. But like Sarah had mentioned in a conversation we had on another space that a comic did a ticketed space over COVID for 20 a clip. Now, comedy, you need to really be in the room. I don't know how funny it's going to be over a microphone like this. I think that the use case is very limited for a company that has, as they claim, limited resources for what they're doing. Should they be wasting time on this feature or focus on tightening up on some of the other features we were discussing earlier today? That's kind of my point of view on ticket spaces. Are they cool? Yes. Will they probably be utilized? Of course. You'll have people's fan bases that they'll run ticketed space on. You'll have some special guests come in, they'll run ticketed space on them. But I don't see the use case of it being there as big as it might be versus like the creator fund that should really get the resources at this point of time.
Awesome.
Well, I love it.
Go
I
ahead,
love
Brandon.
it. I just want to say I love it because I've been very critical about this stuff, but I want to jump into no. I think it's great. I love this idea, and one of the things I love most about it is that it sounds very fair. I'm all for anything that's fair and where anyone has the same shot as anybody else.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like subscription services, I love the subscription services because again, it's a fair situation. People subscribe to you, you get the numbers, and like some of us are doing really well. It's not based on some random algorithm that we have no idea of, where you think that there is some kind of huge biases that's going on. Right. The other thing
No, you love it because you have it. But it's not.
Bro,
it's not fair.
I'm making back from it. That's why I love it.
Yeah, but some people can't even get it, so it's not fair. That's what I'm saying. Once we're all able to get it, then it's fair. It's not fair
Did
yet.
you apply immediately, or like what was your situation?
I applied. It's probably been about a month and a half to 2 months ago, but I keep getting these really weird messages that
I
keep
applied
changing.
immediately, Brandon. Like soon as they got it out, I applied like day 0, and then because I was from the United Kingdom, they gave it to the US people first, and I think we got it like 1 or 2 weeks later. But yeah, I got it like very early on.
I
You
want
learn
to say that I applied in August of 21 when they called it Super Follows. I didn't get it until 3 or 4 months ago when a very conservative account helped me and was able to get it to go through for me. So
Sarah, that's when I got to choose.
I applied in the beginning of 2022, and I'm still waiting for it.
But you learn a lot.
Guys,
You learn a lot about what people think about themselves by how they price their subscriptions. I saw somebody the other day that priced themselves at $20, and I was like, "Bitch, you!" Wow.
Sorry.
About subscriptions, I applied as soon as I didn't apply for the previous program that they had years ago, the Super Follows. I applied as soon as they announced this new program. I think it was March or early April. I got, and I was doing, I recalled getting the first subscribers in the middle of April, and I'm probably in the top 50 according to that list that was released. But the point I want to make about the subscriber program, it's oh God, how do I put?
Still beta. Watch it on Wall Street. Don't be attacking your boy Elon.
No. It's a program that everyone, if you want to be part of the algorithm, and I've seen Elon comment about this. The algorithm currently, as written, favors people who are playing the game. All right, you got to think of this app as a video game, and you're going for the high score. Okay, right now you get favored if you have subscribers. You get favored if you subscribe to other people. If you have not yet subscribed to other people, and you're complaining about, my impressions are down. The algorithm changed in early August, by the way. All right, or late July. If you're complaining about your impressions being down, there's several things you can do that will improve how the algorithm views you. All right, and this has all been made public. You just got to go look for it. Subscribe to a few people. Turn on subscribers.
Take Wall Street's advice. Subscribe to me. Your algorithm will be sorted out immediately according to what he says.
Well, I mean, this should not. It's not. This is common sense. It's not. Rocket science. Play the game.
Yeah, don't be dumb, guys. He's saying it's not even rocket science. So don't be dummies. Subscribe to me. He's saying your algorithm will be sorted.
I don't think it's common sense at all. Like,
well,
if
you guys will stop talking, I'll share some tips for you. Okay. Turn on Pro. You know something? Go buy an advertisement for $10 on one of your tweets and become an active advertiser on the platform. I guarantee you the algorithm favors people who actually advertise on the platform. I spend about $50 a month just boosting some old meme, stupid tweet, just so that the algorithm sees me as an active advertiser every month. Turn on, subscribe to 3 other accounts so that you're actively participating in that system. Me and a group of people, we got verified org so that we could put affiliate tags on our accounts. If you really want your impressions to go up and you really want to be successful on this app, play this stupid game, all right? Otherwise, just shut up and stop bitching because you're not doing it right.
Wall Street. One question. You mentioned Pro. Do you want to tell the people what is the Pro? What is Pro? Because X Pro, I've seen it, but I've not really used it.
No, it's no. Turn on professional version so that you can advertise on the app. All right, so that you can promote a tweet. And I don't go look the tweets that I promote. I'm not selling anything. I go find some stupid old meme that performed well, and I throw $10 on it. And you know something? I'm pretty damn sure the algorithm favors people who are actually spending some money on advertising. And I just do it just because I suspect that's true. But you know something? I'm doing 800 million impressions per month. So I must be doing something right. And my impressions are not going down like all you guys are complaining your impressions are going down. My impressions are skyrocketing. All right. So you just have to learn the algorithm and play this app like a video game.
No, but Wall Street, that's not the argument of some people. The argument people are making isn't, I don't know about on this space, obviously some people talk about boosting and debanning and banning and so forth. The argument that a lot of people on Twitter are making in terms of against this ad revenue is the opposite. They're saying that and including myself, they're saying the impressions are sky high. They're going up every week. Every week they're going higher and higher and higher. And they're in the 50 millions, 100 millions. I think Laura Loomer's on the 400-500 million. And they're saying despite that, then they're not getting the advertising. So it isn't that the impressions are down.
Well, I mean, Laura Loomer is cursing like a sailor in all her tweets. I'm not surprised. When I saw some tweet where she was complaining to Brian Krasenstein because she was jealous of his results. And she called him a goddamn liar in the middle of her tweets. It's no surprise she's getting demonetized all the time. I mean, it's not that difficult to say what you want to say and still be advertiser friendly. It's not complicated.
No, but
I just want to say I love every single thing this man is saying. It's such a relief having somebody who understands how the game works on the other side.
The issue with understanding is so many of us understand what Wall Street's saying because what Wall Street's saying is true. The problem is all of us that quote unquote violated Twitter's terms of service during election fraud and COVID. We can't do none of those things. I don't.
Yes, you can.
No.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. You get with a group of people, buy a verified org, get the little gold check, and guess what? You get internal support.
So it's pay to play essentially. Wall Street.
It's pay to play. If you want to make
so screw everyone else, right? Just pay to play. Drop $1,000 a month. Is that what you're saying?
Hey, if you want to get monetized and make money, I mean,
I don't give a shit about making money. I just want to make sure that my audience gets to see my post. And I shouldn't be paying $1,000 a month to pay. I'm already paying $8 a month. Who cares? That's nothing. But $8,000 a month is $1,000 a month is a lot to drop to just for people to see my shit post tweets, bro. I thought the whole point of this algorithm was to reach your audience and to be able to interact with people. Isn't that the value proposition of Twitter?
I mean, if you want to. If you want to complain, that's fine. Complain, but
no, it's not about complaining. Wall Street. No, it's not about complaining, right? Take the money out of it. Let's go 2 months back when the money didn't exist. I think people are just saying that hey, they garnered an audience. They want to be able to have their audience see their posts. Forget about even growing. They just want their audience to see their posts.
He's getting rid of that tweet cred system. God, give him a few weeks.
Sure, let's give Wall Street. We'll give him.
He probably wasn't even aware there was a tweet cred system.
We'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't aware of Wall Street. It's not about complaining. Again, what happens is people come on these platforms, they minimize it, right? Oh, you guys are complaining, pay $1,000 a month, do this and that. Sure, fine. To each their own. You're in a position that you can do that. Congratulations, God bless. But a lot of people aren't in that position to drop $1,000 a month to be able to passively tweet and have fun. They've worked hard, they've built a platform, they've garnered an audience, but unfortunately now they're being chokeholded by this new algorithm or whatever, this new system, whatever you want to call it is. And sure, okay, we'll give Elon a year, 2 years to figure this out. But the people aren't complaining, they're criticizing, and it's coming from a point because they love this platform. They want it to be successful, and they want to also be able to continue to grow on this platform. You want it to end up like Threads where you post and no one sees it? The reason Threads died is because people were posting. There was no following tab. All I saw was cat pictures and sports stuff for 2-3 weeks, and I left the app because I couldn't see what I wanted, which is with the people I'm following. And that's what's happening now. People aren't able to see who they're following. The people that are following them aren't able to see them. I get DMs all the time from my buddies who are like, bro, why haven't you tweeted in months? I'm like, go on my page, dude. I tweet every single day. And like, oh, we don't see anything. Should I have to pay $1,000 a month for that to work? No, it should be.
Okay, stop already. I mean, there are other tricks you can do without doing.
They hate when you're right. They hate when you're right.
I mean, but listen. There's other tricks you can do Go subscribe to someone. Turn on subscriptions for yourself. It'll happen
I have.
eventually.
I've
Okay.
subscribed to 6 people. I've turned on subscriptions. I played the algorithm game. I don't curse.
Turn on professional version. Pay $10 to
You
promote.
mean the tweet deck?
No, professional version where you actually can.
I've done that. So Wall
I've
Street,
done that as well.
Yeah, no. I think if you turn on the professional version, the thing I haven't done is you can promote a tweet of yours. And what Wall Street's saying, I mean, I've subscribed to People Wall Street. I haven't got my subscriptions activated yet. I'm still waiting, but I'm happy to go and promote a tweet and see if that helps.
Go try. Whenever I think I'm going through a rut and my tweets probably just suck, and that's why my impressions go down. It's like I'll go on there and I'll put $10 on to promote a tweet just so that the algorithm sees me as an active advertiser. And I don't know if all of a sudden that's doing it or whether
how
my
often
tweets.
do you do that, Wall Street? How often would you
Okay, if my daily impressions drops below 20 million per day, then I start thinking, all right, it's getting down too low, and I'll go drop some money to just refresh that. Hey, I'm an active advertiser in the system, and then sure enough, my impressions go back up to 30 million per day. So it's just, I don't know if that's actually in the algorithm. It makes sense that it would be logically, and so I don't mind doing it.
No, but Wall Street, that makes sense. Like what you're saying is really good advice. Like a lot of us would be like, yeah, nice one. We will all do that. That's all good. So I completely agree with that. And literally my plan is, because I do all the things you said, except do the sponsor advertise. I think I did that like a month or two ago, but I've not done that. But I'll do that, no problem. Like when we get this advice, we're willing to do it. The problem I think some of us have is where we don't know what's happening. We don't know if there's there's no transparency in certain situations, and there's a lack of consistency in certain situations. So as an example, you talked about Laura Loomer, and you said, well, she used the word liar. Okay, that's fine. What you're telling me is the advertisers who don't like when Laura Loomer uses the word liar, but then there's certain people who are getting paid a huge amount of money when they're causing racial division. They're talking about Black people. They're attacking LGBTQ. They're attacking various different communities. So you're saying that's more amiable to an advertiser, and that's not? That doesn't seem logical to me. And so what seems more logical to me is, one is probably the ideological position that Twitter wants to take, and the other one isn't. And that's fine. You're saying, so what? Suck it up. Become the ideology Twitter wants. But like a lot of us don't. Some of us here would care more about, Twitter being what it was before, a town hall with various ideas and positions, rather than becoming this ideological, constraint.
Okay, look. I chat with a lot of other large accounts that are making, all those numbers being thrown around for ad revenue that you're talking about. I talk with all those guys privately by DM. All right, there's a lot of Trump supporters that are making plenty of money on this app. I mean, I won't give you their numbers, but you being a conservative Trump supporter is not holding you back from making money on this app. There's just too many examples of people who are making plenty of money from the ad revenue program. What I suspect is going on is, I don't follow Laura Loomer. I mean, I glanced at her tweets when she was going through that, little battle with Brian Krasenstein, and I was trying to figure out why. I was just trying to figure out why is she demonetized. And you look through it, and she curses like a sailor in a lot of tweets. All right, it doesn't surprise me that she's not making money on this app.
But there are ads on her profile, so she is getting monetized. Yeah.
Yeah, just not the same amount.
I did see some ads on some of her tweets. So I mean, I don't know what she's been doing the past 3 months. Maybe she's trying to fix it
my
now.
argument isn't about Laura Loomer. Like that's just an example. What I mean is, because you're talking about her cursing like a sailor. So what you're basically saying is, if someone curses, they will not get advertising. But if somebody causes, for example,
I have tweets that don't have ads on them. All right, I look at all my tweets through a second account to once a day just to see, all right, which ones have ads, which ones don't. And I'm trying to sort of just personally figure out which words should I not use. Like I uploaded some video that was about crime in San Francisco or something, and all that shoplifting that's happening in San Francisco. And I used some sort of crime related. There was no cursing. There was no, I never used the word Nazi or anything, any of these sort of buzzwords you'd think about. But just because it was a crime related video and I used some words discussing, I don't know, shoplifting or things like that, I guess that makes it's on some list that those kind of words are not advertiser friendly. All right. So there were no ads on that tweet.
Wall Street, what is that list? That's what we're saying. Because
yeah, they're never going to tell you that list. The other people in this space have already said why they're not going to show you the list. Because if you knew exactly what the list is, you can game the list. They're never going to give you the exact list. You just got to sort of figure it out on your own and use some common sense.
Wall Street, can I ask you a question? Can I ask a question real quick? First of all, you've been very, very nice to me. So I totally appreciate that. And nothing I'm about to ask in any way, shape, or form is a criticism. I actually respect when you say like treat it like a video game and try to like game it and win. Like I actually think that's really cool. But my question is, if you were being honest, and a lot of people who are like making a lot of money and using Twitter a lot right now, and for the record, you probably missed earlier too when I said I really don't care that much about making money. I'd like to get my engagement where it used to be a while back. That's a whole nother matter. So for me, it's about engagement. It's not about money. But my question is, when you're talking about, like boosting posts and subscribing and having people subscribe to you and like helping boost other people, like how much time are you spending thinking about Twitter? Because that's the other thing. I think like for people maybe like the Krasensteins and people who are just flashing these like $12,000 a month, I get it. Like if I was making 12 grand a month, I would do nothing else but think about Twitter. But like that's kind of not how I want to live my life. So I'm just curious, like for the people who are killing it, do you just literally have to be thinking about Twitter all day long? And like
no, maybe half the day, not all day long. I'm saying that's but I mean, I'm at that same level as the Krasensteins. All right, it's in fact, I exceed it. I exceed what they do in some areas. Like subscribers, I'm way ahead of them. But the point I'm trying to make here is that when you're making on an annualized basis, when you're in the 6-figure category, you're going to put a little bit of time into figuring out how to optimize what you're doing, and that's what we've done. Obviously, all the people who are at that level have clearly learned how to optimize this. It's not if you don't care about the money, that's fine. I respect that. I know that your main thing is the walk away thing, and I actually admire what you do with walk away. Everyone should give Brandon a follow if you believe in that, which I do. I'm a follower of Brandon's account. But if that's your I get it. You just want your engagement back. You want the visibility of your account. That's fine. I would suggest in your situation specifically, just be patient. The tweet cred thing's going to go away, but then I suspect all your problems are going to be fine.
So, I mean, Wall Street has given a number of good advice in terms of what one can do to basically improve and work the algorithm. Because let's be clear, he's right. Like, we're on Twitter for a reason. We want people to see our posts. If it wasn't the case, we would be like not on Twitter and be writing in our DMs. So basically, that is the reason why we're on Twitter. We want people to see our posts. So if anything helps in that, and I don't think it's about like spending loads of time. Like I write my posts on the evening and then schedule them because again, there is certain algorithms that I've noticed when you post at certain times, you post with certain consistency, that improves it as well. So there is certain things that you can do to improve it. My only concern is, like I said, I like a lot of stuff what Elon does, but then just this bit, I'm not like someone who just has to defend him no matter what, and I'm not someone who has to attack him no matter what. I just think it's important to have some level of transparency, some level of consistency on this app, and then therefore it won't become an echo chamber. It won't be ideologically acute, or it won't be ideological in terms of a certain perspective. And I think that's what will make Twitter awesome, as it seemed like it was going to be before. So I think that's the main argument. But I appreciate everybody who has joined the space. We appreciate everybody who's provided the voice. We've had a wide range of ideas and thoughts. It's been really fun. I've learned a lot as well. Much appreciated. Khaleesi, last thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, hey, I want to say, by a show of hands, and I'm going to scroll through, raise your hand if you've subscribed to anyone on this app. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people
subscribe to me.
No. But the reason I'm asking is if you really care about, Elon has flat out said people who are doing the subscriber piece of the game have an advantage in the system. So if you're not subscribing to other people I mean, look, like I turned on my subscriptions and they're $3. I actually regret that I charged so much. I wish I had been like Greg and set it at $1 because it's Greg's down there. I wish I had done what Greg's doing and just set it at $1 because then it's like a tip and people don't really even think about it. And I think the numbers would have been far higher. So think about that when you turn on subscriptions and you start filling it out. Don't go for those crazy high numbers like $5 or $10 like some people are doing. I mean, do a much lower number like Greg's doing, $1, and you're going to have such a stronger experience. And just my advice.
That's a good point, Wall Street, because even Mario's got it at $1 and he's got a significant number of subscribers. So yeah, definitely that does work. It does become a lot more like that. It becomes a lot more easier to subscribe to someone. Sorry, Khaleesi, you're going to jump in before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say very quickly, I've really enjoyed this discussion as well, and I've also learned a lot from Wall Street and some of the things that Theo and Ryan shared. This thing, I just find it difficult to reconcile that if they told people the blacklist, they'd game it. Because if I give you an example, and let's say 1,000 people, as an example, are being penalized at the moment, or shadow banned or deboosted because they're using either a terminology or reference that they shouldn't be using. They don't know what that is. So by not making the blacklist visible, what is happening is that people are being punished for a crime that they don't know that they're committing. And so these 1,000 people, you're saying that they could potentially game it, but at least some of them won't, right? Some of them will be good citizens with this social credit system that's being built on X and not do it. So I still think it should be made visible. That was my parting thought.
I appreciate everybody coming on to the discussion. We will be back tomorrow live for the presidential debate for the presidential debate for the GOP nomination minus former President Trump. So tune in tomorrow. We'll have a discussion about it. We'll be watching it live and then listening to it live, and then we shall be discussing it. So see you tomorrow.
Bye.